Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the debate on collaboration with other professionals. My name is Noah Cass. I will be acting as a moderator as well as filling in both sides of the pros and the cons of this debate. So, just to go and clarify what the debate topic is, it's interdisciplinary collaboration when in ABA or other disciplines. And we'll be going over the pros and the cons of why we would engage in interdisciplinary collaboration and its benefits, as well as its drawbacks and concerns, especially when in regards to its ethics. To go over who will be in this debate, for pros, we have Jesse, Anthony, and myself. And for cons, we have Vanessa and Jessica, as well as myself. And to just quickly clarify, I'll be both on pros and cons. And when I do have to speak on those slides, I will notify you, everyone here, that when I'm speaking about pros, I'll let everyone know. And on cons, I will also again state I'm talking from perspective of why we shouldn't be. Just quickly, some ethics codes to be aware of is that will show throughout periodically during this debate will be these codes. So 1.02, the scope of competency, the scope of practice. So these are two very common themes that we talk about within our ethics class, as well as throughout our time here at Ball State University. Just making sure we are practicing within our knowledge as well as within the entire practice itself, making sure we are providing effective treatment. So when we are implementing any type of treatment, that we are able to, with full fidelity, be able to say that this is an effective treatment. There's also a section on how do we collaborate with colleagues, and it is one of our ethical obligations to make sure we're doing this with respect and being able to do this to the best ability for the clients, as well as our own responsibility for clients, which is 3.01. So I am going to start handing it out to Jessie. She'll be discussing our first section in prose. So Jessie, if you may begin, you're ready to go whenever.
So, everybody, just like anything in life, collaboration in the workplace has its pros and its cons. Today, I'm going to be informing you why collaboration in the workplace is something where the pros outweigh the cons. The pros of collaborating in the workplace include positive effects on those being supported and overall job satisfaction. According to Rivas and Chung's 2017 journal, Influence of Teacher Collaboration on Job Satisfaction and Student Achievement, there is a strong evidence to support that when collaboration is incorporated, the benefits are bountiful. The research from this journal showed that when working together as a team, the people who directly benefited were the students that they were supporting, which is shown in the students' academic achievements. This article also found that in America, when teachers were able to visit other classrooms, it did positively impact their level of job satisfaction as well. These positive results of collaboration are not limited to that of education and are in fact also shown in other fields like nursing. In the setting of nursing, there is a study conducted in 2019 titled Good Nurse to Nurse Collaboration Implies High Job Satisfaction, a structural equation modeling approach. In this study, the findings were that there is a strong association between nurse to nurse collaboration and job satisfaction. This field is much like that of education and is very high stress and fast paced type of environment. In a field like that, the turnover rates can be incredibly high. And if there can be something that will help with retention of staff, it is worth exploring. These studies are conducted in the two fields that together make ABA, which are healthcare and education. Each study shows that when used effectively, our collaboration in the workplace not only will help those working in the fields, but also those that are being taught or receiving services. To go with research from these studies, this quote shows a great positive for being a team. Robert John Meehan states, "The most valuable resource that all teachers have is each other. Without collaboration, our growth is limited to our own perspective." Noah, if you wouldn't mind moving forward to the next slide.
Of course.
Here's a breakdown of supporting reasons to consider collaboration. These reasons were included in the, I apologize if I am saying his name wrong, Yulitmahorian study of nurses, and provides insight into how large of a role collaboration can play in everyday work lives. Now I am going to go ahead and allow Vanessa to state her side of this debate.
So, leading to the cons, I believe, well, according to an article found by Broadhead Quickly and Weston, this I don't know how to say his name, but it's Wolzneski. There needs to be a scope of practice. Scope of practice refers to the range of activities in which members of a profession are authorized to engage by virtue of holding a credential or license. For example, a professional that is a BCBA is credentialed by the BACB. As another example, professionals with a certified of clinical competence of speech language pathology can engage in professional activities within the scope of practice described by the American Speech Language Hearing Association. Each profession's scope of practice is enforced by the entities that regulate the profession's credentialed or licensed practitioners. So the BACB, state licensure boards, regulates the behavior analyst. In some cases, a licensure law may further restrict a behavior analyst's scope of practice beyond the scope specified by the professional's credentialing organization. For example, New York law currently restricts licensees' practice to serving individuals with autism spectrum disorders and related disorders. So, like other credentialing bodies, the BACB includes a clause that behavior analysts only operate within their own scope of practice. Scope of competence refers to the range of professional activities of the individual's practitioners that are performed at a level that is deemed proficient. For example, a given BCBA may be competent and perform a specific level of accuracy and safety to assess and treat aggressive behavior for an individual with autism, but may not have had the training or coursework or knowledge in literature to completely assess and treat aphasia of an adult who has suffered a stroke. In this case, incompetence may result in inadequate services ranging from inaccurate assessment of the presenting concerns to lack of understanding of the relevant treatments and the respective social validity of those treatments within individuals who have suffered a stroke. A different BCBA may have had the reverse scope of competence. So, you, as a BCBA or a different interdisciplinary role, one must determine one's own scope of competence. The responsibility for determining the scope of competence falls within the individual's profession. However, most people do not have updated performance matrix for every professional task. Though a behavior analyst is responsible for evaluating his or her own scope of competence, no published resource exists to guide the evaluation. Next slide. So the cons. Standards of practice included within the discipline scope of practice, and the knowledge and skill within the individual scope of practice. So, many behavior analysts may not have been explicitly taught how to identify their own scope of practice and therefore have difficulty recognizing the situations that are outside of their scope of practice. Behavior analysts may confuse the idea of universal applicability of the principles of behavior within the idea of universal capacity to apply those principles in a competent manner. All right.
All right. On to our next pro then. So this will be the benefits of collaboration. I believe this would be you.
So although we
So-
might not be, hi everyone, Anthony. So as Vanessa was saying, BCBA might not be well versed to deal with the outside of their scope of competency. The Ethics Code 201 states that it's with our duty to provide effective treatment to the best of our ability. So collaborating is important because as future BCBAs and people working in the field of ABA, we will be working with clients that have multiple services as part of their treatment plan. Collaborating with other professionals who have specialized knowledge from their specialty will improve our own therapy by having a variety of tools that may not otherwise be accessible to us as BCBAs. And by being able to collaborate with professionals from other disciplines, we can create better outcomes for our clients. In a journal called Team Collaboration Using the Behavior Principles, collaboration between behavior analyst and occupational therapist, sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, Gaiswiski et al. States that being able to collaborate with people from other disciplines creates better outcomes for clients. Noah, if you could
Of course.
So who might we collaborate with when in the field of ABA? So in the field of ABA, it's common that our clients have multiple services, including but not limited to speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and special education teachers. So when collaboration is done correctly in these disciplines, they can be complementary and inform one another when creating better outcomes for our clients. Next slide, please. So an example of this is when working on communication goals, we might have a goal for our clients, such as functional communication training. When we are working on these goals, we might be hitting barriers to success. So if we're hitting these barriers, we might want to collaborate with a speech pathologist or ideally the speech pathologist of the client about how to best target these goals. So in working on goals that also another example is when working with goals that require motor movements, such as the daily living skill of shoe tying, and we're hitting barriers to success, we might want to collaborate with occupational therapists to tackle those barriers. Next slide, please. So in practice, so as future BCBAs, it's our duty to stay current with peer-reviewed literature pertaining to ABA, but we might not be able to keep current in fields that we're collaborating with. So it's important to rely on the specialized knowledge of those who are outside of our field to better inform and better inform the development of our own treatment plans in a holistic manner to create complementary treatment. Although we may have separate goals that we target, by collaborating, we can make informed decisions about treatment. Next slide, please. So the ethics of collaboration, by not collaborating with other fields, we might be inadvertently creating barriers to success. So if an occupational therapist is targeting their goals a certain way and we're doing it completely opposite, we might be impacting our clients' ability to learn. So as our duty as a BCBA, as stated by the Ethics Code 201, is to ensure that our clients have access to effective treatment. And by collaborating with peers, Ethics Code 2.1, we can ensure that our clients have access to the most effective treatment as it pertains to them as an individual. Next slide. and I will hand it over.
Okay. I will be speaking about the cons of collaborating with other professionals regarding collaboration training, punishment procedures, and how they relate to the BACB Ethics Code. The BACB Ethic Code 2.10 for behavioral analysts states behavioral analysts collaborate with colleagues from their own profession and other professionals in the best interest of the client. When behavior analysts enters a school setting, there are several barriers that affect collaboration and training of school staff. For instance, an article written by Tincani and Kelly titled Collaboration Training and Practice Among Applied Behavior Analysis Who Support Individuals with Autism Spectrum Disorder states increasingly practicing behavior analysts play an integral role as interdisciplinary team members to develop instructional programs. Sorry, guys, for students with autism spectrum disorder. However, there is a lack of research on collaborative training and practice related to professionals in the field of ABA. In this study, 302 behavioral professionals were surveyed regarding what training they received in collaboration, the type and extent of collaboration interaction with other professionals. 95% of the behavior analysts had prior experience working with individuals with autism spectrum disorder. However, when working in a school setting, also work and collaborate with other professionals and paraprofessionals. The study's result indicated that while applied behavior analysis often collaborates with various professionals, there is little to no training provided on collaboration. The Ethic Code 3.01 states behavior analysts act in the best interest of clients, taking appropriate steps to support clients' rights and maximize benefits. Collaborative training provides employees a greater understanding of the other professional's process, procedures, and goals. An obstacle that is often presented by behavioral analysts and educators is punishment procedures. Behavior analysts recommend reinforcement rather than punishment whenever possible. Educators tend to use the loss of recess and privileges as a consequence of their behavior. The behavior analyst must be collaborative and respectful to other professionals and disciplines they implement when providing services. However, the Ethic Code 2.01 states that behavior analysts have an ethical obligation to provide effective treatment that consists with behavioral principles based on scientific evidence and designed to maximize desired outcomes. And no.
All right. So one of the main arguments when it comes to from the con side is that we don't have enough training, or that because there is a clash between our different disciplines as well as within our own program, and being able to fully implement that, we have the question of, is this able to be implemented within our own scope of our own competency as well as within our own practice. But one of the big failures when it comes to from the cons side and the consequences is that these type of meetings allow us to grow our own scope of competency. And although yes, there are trainings that need to be done, and that is something that needs to be addressed not only within a graduate level study, but also within our own practices to ensure that we have effective and all encompassing ability to implement what we are getting from these type of collaborations. Then if we're able to do so, then we're going to be able to better able to better help our clients, but also grow within our own field. Because outside of research within the ABA field, BCBAs do have limited exposure and knowledge in these areas, especially in new developments of communication technologies, or methods of teaching, or occupational skills and physical therapy based methods. Some of these areas we have very little to no knowledge, and we do heavily rely on other therapies such as occupational and physical therapies, especially since it focuses on very specific skills that we may not touch on at least regularly within an ABA clinic. and being able to then talk to these other professions and be able to extrapolate information from them is going to be incredibly important to growing our competency, growing our knowledge, so that it's not just this one client, but instead that we are able to then, hey, I've learned this new thing. Can we now put it into use with another client? Why or why not? And be able to grow our own knowledge and become more effective from that means. And on top of that, as BCPAs, we are limited time. We tend to focus a lot of our research into our ABA field on its practices as well as new types of effective treatments so that we are able to better serve within our own profession. But there are other different discoveries being made within research in other fields, in speech therapy, in occupational therapy, in physical therapy, as well as special education that we may not be fully aware of. And being able to talk to these other therapists, to be able to get this new information allows us to grow as a profession, to allow us to grow as BCBAs. And that also would allow for us to implement more tools and methods that can also be brought to the discussion. And that is something that has been talked about with Ilta Roman and et al. Back in 2019, is that these new growths through the usage of a collaborative system is going to allow us to be able to use these new pieces of information to better grow our own practice. And on top of this, all with further training and practice, and that is certainly something that we need to discuss about, we could then bring a lot of that new information from other fields, from speech and OT, to be able to better support the clients that we serve on a daily basis, to modify our approaches, to modify the systems that we do have in place currently, to then build a more fundamentally better therapy as a whole. I am now going to be talking about the cons side, so just so that everyone is aware. One of the big problems, and I just noted this just before we swapped over to the cons section, is that we do have limited training when it comes to being able to implement these collaborative studies. Very similarly, as talked about from Kelly and Tanachi in 2013, there is relatively low amount of training when it comes to implementing these type of collaborations, and that can create severe questions of, are we able to be able to say we're acting within our own competency? Are we able to be acting within our own scope? And if we aren't, then is this harming the effectiveness of treatment? Is this putting the child in harm of danger? Because being not able to be fully aware and understanding of how these systems are put in place can be incredibly dangerous when it comes to upholding our ethical standards. And another great point that should be brought up when it comes to being aware and being concerned about implementing these is that if you have a clinic, hypothetically, that you might only be able to see speech, OT, or physical therapy every once in a while and not on a consistent basis, would we be able to get the support to be able to implement those therapies effectively from the collaboration process? Now, certainly, there are clinics and other type of school systems that do have regular contact with these other services, and so this might become less of a concern. But especially newer clinics or clinics that are in rural locations, those are clinics that we do have to be aware of. They may have limited access to these other therapies, and so if they are using a multidisciplinary collaboration process, if they are implementing the suggestions, and if there's questions and they can't get those questions answered, then we start to get into, hey, are we acting in the best interest of the client? Do we need more training? And that is something that needs to be addressed. Another thing that I really bring up as well personally is that, again, without this training, would we be able to fully realize the benefits that come from a collaboration training, especially since there's a lack of training currently. And if we are not able to get the most out of this collaboration, would this time just be better used to find treatments that are effective and fully knowledgeable by the BCBA and that can be fully enacted upon? Again, acting within our scope of competency as well as our own practice is going to be truly important when it comes to the effectiveness of our therapies, because that is where we know with full knowledge of what we're implementing. We know full knowledge of how are we going to be able to say, hey, we're noticing this problem. Okay, we know what tweaks we need to make. And if we are using a multidisciplinary process, would we be able to do that same exact thing? And also, a big thing is going back to the point of not being able to fully access other disciplines. If they aren't able to guide the treatments, that is a huge problem. That is, in my opinion, unethical, and that is something that needs to be addressed before going into this process. So, Anthony, I want to pass it off for in conclusion.
All right, thank you, Noah. So, as Noah was mentioning, there is a big concern about the surrounding the training or lack thereof when we're talking about these sorts of collaborations. So these concerns are well placed and should be considered. And without any specified training, would we be able to, with confidence, state that we are acting within our ethical obligations to our clients and professions? With training, however, the benefits might be twofold of improving relations within our own practice and with other disciplines. It can also improve the quality of care that our clients receive and better improve their livelihoods and quality of life um, throughout their lifetime with greater confidence in tools and interventions that we put in place. And with the assistance of others from different professions with different mindsets and viewpoints, we can grow as interventionists ourselves to be more well-rounded and more effective as BCBAs in the long term. So that's our conclusion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic day. And again, we appreciate you taking the time to watch this full study and this full debate. And we hope that you have a fantastic time and gain something from this debate. Have a great day, everyone.